Welcome to Ask the Expert with noted radio host Steve Sleeper. Each week, Steve interviews entrepreneurs and professionals and shares their intriguing stories of success and service. Now, here's radio veteran Steve Sleeper.
And welcome to another edition of Ask the Expert. Today, our guest is attorney Sheila Norman from Tampa, Florida. Sheila, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm good. Hey, tell me about your firm and yourself.
I'm a bankruptcy attorney. I've been practicing bankruptcy law for a little over 20 years. The name of our firm is the Law Offices of Norman and Billington Chartered. My partner Walter and I have been practicing together for about 10 years now. In addition to bankruptcy, we do some family law and help people who are having difficulty dealing with the IRS and getting past due taxes paid.
Basic question, Sheila. What is bankruptcy?
Bankruptcy is a process that allows individuals or businesses to seek relief from their debts. For an individual, they have a choice between Chapter 7, which will get rid of most of their debt, and a Chapter 13, which will help them get some relief while they somewhat reorganize. A Chapter 11 will allow an individual or a business to do a pretty extensive reorganization of their financial affairs.
Okay. Why do I need an attorney to file bankruptcy?
You need an attorney to file bankruptcy because it's pretty complicated. And many of the decisions you make, particularly before the bankruptcy case is filed, are hard to fix if you don't make the right decisions from the get-go.
So there's a lot I need to know and a lot of stuff that needs to be done.
Yes, you have a lot of papers that need to be filed. You need to understand several different areas of law. It's one of the reasons I like practicing bankruptcy law so much, because it reaches out and touches a lot of different aspects.
And you're also of service to folks. You're helping them out. So I file bankruptcy. Do I get to keep my stuff, or what happens?
In most instances, there's a choice. It depends on your situation, but I would say the very vast majority of our clients keep everything that they want to keep. You sometimes may choose to voluntarily give something back. For instance, a vehicle. If you made a bad deal and the payments are unreasonable, bankruptcy gives you the option to give the car back without a penalty because you're in bankruptcy. Or if you're able to make the payments and you want to keep the vehicle, typically as a creditor is just as happy for you to keep the vehicle.
I see. Okay. What kind of debts are discharged or go away when I file bankruptcy?
It's easier to answer the question in the reverse. There's a few debts that are difficult to discharge. Those are primarily taxes, which can only be discharged in special situations, student loans, which are even more difficult to discharge, and you can't get rid of obligations for child support or alimony. There are a few other exceptions to that don't allow for debts to be discharged, but they're unusual, and probably the first thing someone's going to tell me is that kind of a fact pattern, if they have it.
I see. Okay. Did you see a lot of divorces with the market crash? A lot of bankruptcies with the market crash 5 years ago?
Yes, although the market crash is typically going to affect more businesses than individuals. Individuals tend to take their hits in their portfolios, which are usually their plans for retirement instead of what they're doing right now. A healthy economy is good for bankruptcy, believe it or not. It's a little counterintuitive, but when the economy is clicking along, is typically that's the way I like the business best.
Yeah, okay. I understand. Now, you mentioned family law. How does that relate to bankruptcy? And if family law is typically going through a divorce, talk about that a little bit.
When you're going through a divorce is an excellent time to look at your debt situation. Occasionally, the debt situation is what's putting pressure on the family, and getting that problem alleviated may save the marriage. Even when it doesn't, there are some good opportunities at that time to make some plans to deal with debt. For instance, you may be able to take some money that in a bankruptcy context would have to go to creditors and use it to get to your other spouse, which both helps them and you get better relief out of a bankruptcy case.
Okay. Now, you mentioned you're also a family lawyer, so do you offer all types of family law services, for lack of a better way of asking that question?
I do. We do divorces here. We also help people with paternity cases and issues that arise after a divorce.
Now, with divorce, do you find that people wait too long to file for divorce?
Sometimes they do. We find that sometimes people separate and they don't realize that what their spouse is doing continues to affect them even though they're separated, or they get to a point where there's so much hostility it makes the divorce unnecessarily acrimonious.
Florida laws talk a little bit about that. What are grounds for divorce?
Well, Florida is a no-fault state, and that means that for the vast majority, the only thing the divorcing party has to prove is that there are irreconcilable differences.
Okay. Do you ever go to mediation?
Yes. In fact, our courts are very supportive of mediation. They require the parties to go to mediation before a contested hearing is scheduled, and many, many, many cases settle in mediation.
Do you see alimony much anymore?
It's becoming less common as time goes on and we reach the point where more women have been in the workforce. We're seeing some changes. Florida has, in fact, a new statute that was just passed. It's waiting for the governor's signature as we speak that is going to make alimony a little more of a formula and less of an argument, because there's going to be some more guidelines of exactly how alimony is supposed to work.
Who typically gets custody? I mean, at one time it was always mom. Is that still the case in Florida?
In Florida, we're now using what's called shared parental responsibility, meaning that both parents should be making the major decisions with respect to what's going to happen with the child, and they should be parenting the child together even though they're not living in the same house. We are seeing a lot more custody arrangements where it's not as clear who the primary residential parent is. We don't even use that term anymore. So it's becoming much more blended and flexible.
That's all about the kids, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Obvious question and answer. But child support, do you still see that? Is it still prevalent?
Child support is always going to be an issue. Child support is determined under guidelines that are provided, and that is one of the big things that having a more shared parenting with the children going back and forth more often, that has a very large impact on how child support needs to be shared between the parties.
Getting back to bankruptcy, let's say I file for bankruptcy, Chapter 7, just for discussion purposes. Will I ever be able to get credit again?
Yes. Your creditors would love for you to think that Chapter 7 is the end. It really is not. Most of my clients will get offers for credit cards not long after they got their discharge. That doesn't mean they should take advantage of those credit card offers, though. If you're careful with your credit, it takes about 2 years to get to the point where you can do things like purchasing a house. Most of the guidelines for FHA loans and VA loans, they want you to wait 2 years. And if you've done well with your credit post-bankruptcy for 2 years, you can do most of the things that you need to do with credit.
Okay. What should I look for in a bankruptcy lawyer?
I would suggest you look for someone who is experienced. I would suggest that you look for someone who is going to be able to stick with a case if it becomes contested or some other problem arises. While it's very unusual for a problem to arise, if you have an attorney that doesn't have any litigation experience, it can be harder to get the problem addressed. So I recommend someone who has some experience and will stick with, ask your bankruptcy attorney what they do if something goes wrong, so that you can have an understanding as to whether that means you're going to have to get another attorney or they have experience. I'm board certified, which tells a potential client that I've taken an exam about bankruptcy law, that I have certain level of experience, and that I've taken a lot of continuing legal education to make sure that I'm keeping up with what the bankruptcy law is developing and how it's changing to benefit my clients.
That's important to point out that, the bankruptcy law is fluid, isn't it?
It is. And even though it's a national law, there are a lot of local variations. So it helps if your attorney knows the local culture, the local judges, the trustees, the people they'll be working with.
And that's important with family law as well, too, to know the local judges and the like, right?
Absolutely.
What else should we look for with a family law attorney?
In a family law attorney, I think that your ability to fit with that lawyer from a personality aspect is extremely important. And do not hesitate to talk to more than one lawyer so you can make sure that that's a good match. If you're not comfortable telling someone your deepest, darkest secrets, that's going to interfere with their ability to represent you effectively in a family law case.
I've heard that if you're talking to an attorney and you start to tell some of the deepest, darkest secrets and they cut you off, they don't want to hear it, it's probably time to look for another attorney then, huh?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, you've got to be willing to listen and understand where they're coming from, because you're going to pick up something along the line that's going to be very helpful. Sheila, is there anything else I should know about your practice?
We love to help people. We're problem solvers, and that is the thing that we like to do for our clients, is have them come into our office with a problem and leave knowing that they have a plan to get that problem resolved.
Oh, excellent. And how do we reach you?
You can reach us by telephone at 813-251-6666, or you can look at our website, which is floridabankruptcyeducationcenter.com. Or you can send me an email at sheila@normanandbillington.com, and that's SHEILA at NORMANANDBULLINGTON.com.
All righty, there we go. So if you ever need help with bankruptcy or family law, you're on the west coast of Florida, around the Tampa area, Sheila Norman. Sheila, thanks for being our guest on Ask the Expert today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Ask the Expert with Steve Sleeper. Join us next time as entrepreneurs and professionals share their intriguing stories of success and service.